up and into the pesky pole. And that's going to get down the line. That one looks like it'll stay fair. And goodbye, home run. The pesky pole.
The 2-2. Swinging a fly ball deep down the right field line, slicing by the pesky pole. And that ball hits the pesky pole, which means it's going a home run.
3-2 high fly down the right field line, slicing toward the pesky pole into the corner, and that ball is gone. A green can. Now with a high fly down the right field line, headed toward the pesky pole. Is he going to tuck it inside? Indeed he does. That is gone.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Pesky Podcast. I'm your host, Ritt. With me is our head writer, Mr. George Sutherland. George, what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot, just watching the season wind down, waiting to the end and take a look and see what's going on in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, it's been a long season. It's been an abysmal season. We've had some great times and we've had some really bad times. But George, there's more than just the Boston Red Sox. We've had some great times coming recently in our farm system, and how we're going to bring on the next guest. We're going to sit back and we will play this quick video and then see where we get to go.
Two down, 2 on. 7-3 drive, trying to win the South Atlantic League Championship. And they do! It's over! It's over! It's over! And the Drive have won it. The 2023 South Atlantic League Championship with a 7-3 win over Hudson Valley on a strikeout to end the game by Felix Cepeda.
And here he is. He is from the championship Greenville Drive. We're going out on a high note, Mr. Kier Meredith.
How you guys doing?
Not so bad. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Watching that clip, Kier, what thoughts were going through your mind? What memories? It was just a week and a half ago?
Yeah, I think tonight's Wednesday. So yeah, that was, I want to say last Tuesday. So a little over a week ago. Just excitement, pure joy. I think that was the first, I won a couple of youth league championships, but had no luck in high school, no luck in college. So that was really the first, I guess, real championship that I was able to win and be a part of. So it was a great time.
Man, first off, let's stick with the Greenville Drive here. A lot of players, a lot of moving parts throughout the season. How hard is it for a team to have to, like Hunter Gobbins, moved up. Roman Anthony, he moved up. How does a team function and stay united as you guys did throughout the whole season?
Yeah, it's tough. Like you just mentioned, 2 great guys went up. It seemed like this year was honestly a revolving door. It felt like every week there was our manager, he was coming in the locker room telling us somebody was being shipped up to Portland. But I think that just speaks to the culture in the organization. Down in spring training, you really don't know who's in AA, who's in AAA, who's in high A. I mean, it's honestly, it's going to sound cliche, but it's one big family down there. And so when guys move up and when the next guy comes in and replace, you don't really miss a beat because you play with those guys down in spring training. You've got a relationship with them. A lot of us are in group chats together, and so we stay in touch. So the camaraderie is already there, and the culture is established early on. So it's kind of easy when guys are coming up. You already know them. You've been around them, and you enjoy being around them. You just have to go out in the field and play at the end of the day. So,
what was it like going into spring training this year, knowing that of the talent that just moved through our farm system that, Chaim Bloom had put together piece by piece and just what's it like to have that much talent? Early on in the season, you guys had all eyes on, you guys, because that's where a lot of the talent was. So, what's it like? Is there any pressure?
I wouldn't say pressure, more so excitement. Like you said, we knew early on that all eyes were on us. We knew that breaking camp, we had a loaded roster, and so we were just excited to get out on the road and start playing together, win some ball games.
We've had a lot of your former players and current players on there. We've had Maceo Campbell on our podcast. Oh, this Sunday we're having Christopher Troy. You said you guys are really close. So last week, this past weekend, you sit there and announced the retirement.
Yeah.
Like, you've been playing baseball for quite some time. You just sit there and started with the Red Sox in 2021. So what was the thought process that went in to make this decision? And just coincidentally, you're going out on top.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy decision at all. And to be quite honest with you, the decision was made a few months ago, actually. So take you guys back to my college career, dealt with a number of injuries, had 3 surgeries, 5 major injuries throughout my time at Clemson. And so I was actually fortunate and blessed that the Red Sox even took a chance on me. Out of college, I was dinged up and quote unquote damaged goods, I would say. And just this year, thought I was over the injury bug, dealt with injuries again this year. Things didn't really feel the same. And so I kind of, have to look in the mirror at that point and kind of, question, do I want to continue to do this? Can you continue to do this? Can you compete at a high level? And I think just with tough conversations with myself, tough conversations with people around me that I love, I think there's more for me somewhere. Obviously, I'm not playing anymore, but I think I have a lot to offer to this game. And so maybe, one day that's coaching, maybe that's scouting one day. But I was kind of ready to turn that page and begin a new chapter and start to pour into the next generation and kind of serve others in a different capacity. And so it was definitely a tough decision, but I've got peace with the decision and I'm excited for what's next for sure.
George?
Sure. So what kind of immediate plans do you have? I mean, I know you just closed the door on your playing career. What are you looking forward to doing, as you turn into a new chapter in your life?
Yeah, so immediate right now, there's a number of I actually live in the Greenville area. I went to Clemson, 45 minutes up the road, and then I was fortunate enough to play here in Greenville this year, and it doesn't get much better than Greenville, South Carolina. So I decided to stick around and live here, and there's a number of facilities around. I actually got connected with guys that played at Clemson probably about 10 or 15 years ago, around 2010, and they have a nice facility, and they have a lot of athletes, a lot of youth teams that run out of this facility. And so immediately right now, I'm up at the facility helping them train players and helping coach the next generation up.
Kier, you sitting there getting ready to coach the next generation up. Who, we talked about several players. Spring training, sometimes, somebody takes people under their wing, gives them advice. Have you had that interaction, where someone kind of like pulls you aside and, gives you some good advice? And what advice was that?
Yeah. The first guy that comes to mind, definitely, you mentioned him earlier, was Narciso Crook. Met him early on in spring training. And I think the cool thing, being in spring training, you're around guys. He had some big league time himself. Honestly, I really didn't know who he was when I first met him. Really didn't, know much about him. Didn't know he played in the big leagues. But yeah, took me under his wing, talked to me a lot during spring training. And I think the biggest advice, he gave me was one, just be yourself. And two, I think at the end of your playing career, nobody really is going to care about how good you were, how well you played. They always remember the kind of person you were and the kind of teammate that you were in the clubhouse. So just be yourself and always, treat the game with respect, treat your teammates with respect, and just treat people well.
Yeah, Narciso, he is an amazing guy. He was actually one of the first people that I got to talk to when I was at the Rail Riders Woo Sox game. And it was before the game, batting practice is going. He's walking by. And, I went and let him do his batting practice, get his thing going, and he came back over and asked for some time. And he goes, I give you a time, I give you an interview. All you got to do is, which is, I found out that's his thing, and I love it about him. Pay it forward, do one good deed to someone else. And I was like, man, and just talking to him, great personality, always positive, and you got to experience that. And it seems to me you're the same way when you go and talk to these younger players and stuff. Stay positive, pay it forward and stuff. And that's what, baseball should always be about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he's a great example of that. I can't say enough good things about the guy. He's always smiling. He's got those big pearly whites, and it's always positive energy when you're around Cricket.
Yeah. George?
When you were growing up, obviously you played baseball. What other sports did you play? Anybody you tried to emulate in your baseball career, or your favorite player?
Yeah, so I growing up, in the wintertime, I thought I was going to the NBA. Found out real quick that wasn't happening because I sucked at basketball. Couldn't shoot and couldn't dribble with my left hand, and I'm left-handed, so it doesn't make any sense. But also I ran track a little bit in middle school and high school, and then I grew up from as soon as I touched the baseball, I touched the football as well. And so kind of football and baseball was neck and neck. My brother played Division II football at a school in North Carolina. And funny enough, I chose baseball over football to pursue because I didn't want to go to college. And so I figured baseball was the route I could get drafted out of high school and kind of skip the whole college thing, but ended up going to college. So looking back, maybe I should have stuck with football. But to answer your second question, I think, being a smaller guy at the time and a left-handed hitter, Kenny Lofton, I kind of saw the back half of his career as a child, but he was an exciting player and somebody I definitely try to emulate.
Excellent.
So going through, you chose Clemson. What other colleges were you, looking at, or was Clemson, like you said, is just down the road? Was that always just a first pick for you?
Actually, no. I don't think Clemson. I don't think I ever looked at Clemson as a possibility or an option until they started recruiting me. Early on, I was and this timing is going to come. This is bad timing on my end, but early on, I was a Florida State fan, and Jameis Winston was there, and their baseball team was good. Obviously, Mike Martin's a legendary coach. They just beat our butts in football, but I was a Florida State fan, and I was just set and convinced I'm going to Florida State. Well, when reality started to set in, I realized Florida State was 10 hours from home, and that wasn't an easy drive up the highway and down the road. And so that's when schools around North Carolina State, UNC Chapel Hill, East Carolina, Duke, the whole nine, they threw the boat at me in high school. And then Clemson and South Carolina were the other two out-of-state schools. And funny enough, one of my good friends, Max Starbuck, we were in sixth grade class together, grew up together. We were 7, 8 years old, playing Little League together. His dad was a hitting coach at Clemson, and he had taken that job about 2 years before my recruiting process started. And I kind of always knew I wanted to get out of state. Well, it made the most sense. There was a guy down the road, just 3 hours. I grew up with him. He's like a second dad to me now, and he was the pull that got me to go down there. So that's kind of how everything worked out. And also, too, the football team being good played a big role, and they were just building a new facility, so the bells and whistles helped out a little bit as well.
Oh, good.
the spent probably endless time in the weight room there.
Absolutely, yep.
So let's sit there and switch baseball a little bit. What do you like to do in your free time when baseball wasn't, your number one priority, which now you're have a lot of free time? But well, what do you like to do? What types of food do you like to eat? Stuff like that.
So being in upstate South Carolina, there's a ton of hiking trails. We're kind of on the cuffs of the mountains. So there's a ton of trails you can walk around. There's 3 lakes within 45 minutes to an hour around here. Love going out on the lake. Love going out on trails. One of my best friends taught me how to fly fish, and so the last couple of years I've kind of taken a liking in that, and that is hard. It's hard, a lot harder than regular fishing. But I've taken a liking to that the last couple of years, and Really just I'm easygoing, simple guy. I like hanging out with friends, going out to eat, watching movies, just the basic things. And I eat like a 12-year-old still. So I love pepperoni pizza is probably my favorite food. Give me some steak, some fries, burgers, chicken fingers. I eat like your basic 12-year-old. Hopefully I'll grow out of that here soon, so I don't blow up post retirement.
Yeah, don't feel bad when my fiance and I go out to a restaurant. She skims through the menu and she goes, "They have chicken fingers." I'm like, they have a whole bunch of other things. She goes, "Right, they got chicken fingers."
Oh yeah.
I'm like, "Oh man." So don't feel bad, for being eaten like a 12-year-old. Other people still do too.
Yeah.
And I'm
We all
trying
do.
to break her. I'm trying to break her of that habit. Trying to. But you can't argue with her because you always lose.
You know what you're gonna get, right? Somebody can mess up a steak. They can cook the chicken too much. They can mess. People, I've seen people mess up vegetables, and so it's like chicken fingers and fries. I know what I'm gonna get. You can't mess this up. And if you mess it up, we've got a problem.
You gotta try real hard to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, George, you guys have some stuff in common, hiking and stuff like that. You have any more questions about that?
So you said you get into fly fishing. You're doing it locally. Any thoughts about maybe going out to the Rockies and places like that to really kind of see what you're all about and do that?
Yeah, so the guy that I was telling you about, my friend that taught me, actually upped and moved to Colorado Springs.
Oh, no way.
And so he's out there. He was telling me. So here in South Carolina, usually they'll stock the rivers with trout. And so you literally, like, the first time I ever went, every time we threw our freaking line in the water, something was biting, and we caught a ton of fish that day, right? But he said out west, the fish are a little smarter. There's not that many of them. And so he hadn't had that much luck. So I know if he's not having any luck right now, then I probably won't have that much luck when I go visit him in a couple months. But I would love to get to experience it.
Good. Yeah, it's a good friend of mine who was well into that, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. So
definitely peaceful. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what he said. He said, just your line, and the fish.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I like to get off my phone as much as possible and just get some sunlight, be outdoors, smell the trees, and just enjoy myself.
Yeah, I sit there and try to do that, but it's hard because, as I was so lucky to get you to come on the podcast, I'm always hustling. I'm trying to sit there and get our podcast out there as much as possible. And, I feel in my mind I can't do that if I have my phone down. So, maybe one day I'll be able to sit there and do the same thing you guys do, put the phone down and just sit back and relax.
Yeah, maybe one day. I used to be the same way. A couple off seasons ago, I had a social media job. I was working for a company out of Atlanta, and they were trying to basically create an app and a bunch of stuff. Long story short, I was on my phone for probably 12 hours a day, it felt like. And I think that was a turning point for me. I had the worst brain fog in the world, couldn't think straight. And I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I think after I ended up, that was an off-season job. I think when I went back to spring training, I think I deleted social media off my phone for like 2 or 3 months because I was tired of looking at it.
Oh, wow.
So, growing up, what was your sports team?
All right, so you want all of them, or you just want baseball?
Hey, let's go all of them to see how scattered you are.
All right, I'm scattered. I'm just giving y'all a heads up. So football, I don't know how. My dad's from New Jersey, and somehow, some way, they're all Cowboy fans up there. And they're 8 miles from Philadelphia. They hate the Eagles. And so I was born into it. And before you call me a bandwagon, I've seen the Cowboys win 2 playoff games my entire life. So I've been cheering for a bad team. And then being from North Carolina, watching Chipper Jones, and I think even I want to say I might have called the back end like Glavin's career. Just watching those guys. The Braves honestly weren't great either, but I was a Braves fan growing up. Really, those were the main 2 teams. I mentioned I was a Florida State fan earlier. I'm not really a basketball fan, but my favorite athlete of all time is Kobe Bryant. And so I kind of cheer for the Lakers. I'm not a huge fan of LeBron. I'm not a fan of LeBron being there. So kind of don't really cheer for him much now. And I think that's the big three. I never really watched MLS or even international soccer. Don't really understand it. Obviously, you score a goal and let's go and you get excited, but I don't understand the half back and the mid back and offense, defense or anything. And then I guess that's about it. NHL, I really don't have a dog in the fight there. I went to a Hurricanes game as a kid. I know the Bruins are a big deal up in Boston.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've never really had a dog in the fight in NHL either. So
Yeah. I gotta admit, the Kobe. I respect the guy. I was always a huge Shaq fan.
Ooh.
I followed him, coming out of high school, getting drafted, then by the Magic. I just followed Shaq. I liked wherever he ended up and stuff. But Kobe was a different breed. He was right there with the work ethic as MJ, to where he showed up to practice 3 hours before everybody, and he's still there after everybody's leave. That's one hell of a work ethic that a lot of the kids nowadays, they don't have that work ethic.
Yeah, I completely agree. That Mamba mentality it meant something to me. Growing up, I would watch Kobe Bryant interviews. I would watch Kobe Bryant practice clips, game highlights, and there was just something about him, like the aura he had over him, that just, if he wanted something, he can go get it. And I think I think as a young athlete, I honestly fed off of it. My parents always told me, you can be whatever you want to be if you work hard. And watching him, he gave me that belief in myself. Like, hey, if you want to go play college baseball, you can do it. You just got to work at it. Or if you want to play professionally, same thing. You can go do it. You just have to work at it. And so I think he was just a guy, you looked up to. For me personally, growing up, he was my MJ.
Yeah. I kind of look at The Rock with his merchandise, Project Rockwear, hardest worker in the room. I love that mentality, outwork everybody. And, it's something we got to instill on the younger generations nowadays, because a lot of them, they just want everything handed to them and they don't want to work for it.
Absolutely. And I don't think social media helps. You've got, it's basically just a large highlight reel at the tip of your fingertips. And even I was victim, social media wasn't as prevalent when I was a child and growing up that much. But, I used to remember looking at people and thinking that overnight successes was a real thing and it was possible. Like I used to, look up, how do I run a 6-3-60 in 2 weeks, or how can I bench 225 pounds in a month? But the more and more I worked, the more and more I was around the game, the more and more I honestly just matured and grew up in life. You realize that those overnight successes aren't overnight successes. Those guys were grinding and busting their butt. For an example, one of my good buddies I played with in high school, travel ball, David Schneider, with the Blue Jays. He burst on the scene this year, and everyone's like, "Holy cow, who's this 24-year-old superstar or great player?" But those people didn't see Davis in 2020 when he was struggling like everyone else with COVID, and he was grinding and working and just chipping away. People only see it when you make it, and they see the flashy highlights that social media curates for us, but a lot more goes into it. And yeah, like I said, overnight successes, it's all a myth.
Yeah. A lot of people want to sit there and say, and you've seen them, Roman Anthony.
Yeah.
Kyle Teal, those two burst on the Red Sox farm system this year, and they moved very, very quickly. Can you sit there and talk a little bit about any interactions with Kyle or Roman that you had, and their mentality that you've seen preparing for games and for this everyday baseball?
Yeah, first and foremost, two wonderful guys. They were a pleasure to be around every day in the clubhouse. They were both, quirky in their own ways and just awesome guys to be around. You go in the locker room, you're going to see Kyle Till, you're going to see Roman Anthony smiling and just cutting up. but they're also, incredibly hard workers. Probably two of the hardest working guys that I've ever been around in a clubhouse setting. They show up every day. They're loose, they're relaxed, but they know when it's time to go to work, it's time to go to work, and you're not going to cheat them on reps or anything like that. And so to see them have the success that they both, had when they burst into the scene is no surprise to people that are around them every day. And I think that success is going to continue throughout the rest of their careers.
Yeah, George and I, we're big Roman Anthony fans.
Yeah.
I'm representing the Roman Empire shirt, established 2022. On the back, George put it on there. Join the growing legion, because George is a big history buff. Man, I love how mature he is for a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Like I see people 23, 24, 25 that aren't as mature as he is at such a young age and as successful as he is at a young age. But that goes off of what you're saying here, the hard work that he puts in behind the scenes that we don't see.
Yeah,
he seems incredibly grounded.
You repeat that, George?
I said he seems incredibly grounded.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There was never a time, even when the success, even for an example, when he got called up to AA, he was kind of just like, whoa, like this really just happened. Like he wasn't expecting it at all. He's a guy that's always living in the moment. He wasn't looking forward to when am I going to get promoted? Because you've been around guys I've been around guys that are, playing well and they're looking forward to the next thing. And like, when am I going to get promoted, or when is this going to happen? When is that going to happen? But not Roman. He showed up every single day with the same mentality. I've got to get better. And that he did every single day.
So going into spring training, for the first time, what was the experience like for you, down there, part of the Red Sox organization? Because like you said earlier, it's not, split up. You're all there from Major League all the way down to high A, low A. Everybody's there. So what was it like? And did you have a starstruck experience? Because sometimes, we got Dustin Pedroia, Ortiz, Pedro's down there, and what was that like?
Yeah, so my first ever spring training was 22. I signed in 21. And it was kind of like a false taste of reality because the lockout was going on. I don't know if you guys obviously remember that, but in 22, the MLB was locked out. And so there was only minor leaguers down there. And I don't think the lockout ended until probably, 2 weeks into spring training. I can't remember the exact number of days, but we were basically spoiled for 2 weeks. We kind of had the whole cage to ourselves. We had every field to ourselves. We were the priority because the big leaguers weren't there, right? And then obviously when the big leaguers get there, we kind of get pushed out the weight room and we got to go lift in the tent, and they've got first priority to the cages. But yeah, it was awesome. The current I really didn't have any starstruck experiences with the current players because, like I mentioned earlier, they're just one of the guys that at the end of the day, there was no guys that were intentionally big leaguing anybody. If you were around them, they spoke to you. Chris Sale mingled and hung out with minor league guys. But I will say, as far as former players went, I was walking across the agility fields one day, and the agility fields are kind of connected to the bullpens, and I'm walking towards the locker room, and Pedro Martinez is kind of sitting in the bullpen by himself. And obviously Sam, and I know who he is, and I'm like I'm gonna stay out of his way, and I'm gonna try to walk as far away around him as possible. And he actually made it a point to stand up, walk towards me, and he stuck his hand out and said, "Hey, I'm Pedro Martinez." And my heart's pounding. I'm like, I know who you are. And I ended up just saying, "Oh, I'm Kier." And when I left, I was like, "God, you should say Kier Meredith, like your full name." He just introduced himself to you that way. So. But that was definitely my starstruck moment. Just being around a guy like that. It was a fun moment for sure.
Yeah, it was DC and I. We talked to Joe Bradley. He's the VP of the Woo Sox, and we had him on here. he said, hey, I can hook you up with press passes, because DC and myself, we live down in Pennsylvania. So the only time we get to see him is when they play the Rail Riders or the Lehigh Valley's teams. So we went and got press passes. You know, Joe hooked us up, got everything set up, and DC looks at me. He goes, dude. I'm like, what? He goes, we can't ask for autographs anymore. And it kind of like, I kind of sat back and I was like, man, really? And I'm like, yeah, but now we get to talk to these people like you, you know, we get to talk to you guys, interact with you, bond with you guys, and then like we get to go along in your journey and everything. I'm like, that's kind of like making friendships now. Like I sit there and go through my phone sometimes, because I used to do a pro wrestling podcast before this, and I go through my phone sometimes, and I'm like, dude, if 18, 19, 20-year-old me knew like the numbers I have in my phone,
Yeah,
it's crazy. So, but yeah, you get starstruck sometimes, but you guys are all you guys, you know, are normal people. You know, you guys just have a little bit more high profile job where all eyes are on you guys.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all it is. You know, just a bunch of guys being guys and playing a kid's game at the end of the day. And so I think when you remember that, it kind of grounds you and humbles you, and you look around and you're like, man, I actually belong here. So,
George?
I'm sure that winning the championship this year was probably the highlight of your minor league career. What other highlights, coming up through your professional career, do you think you'll always remember as you look back?
oof, that's definitely a tough one. Probably first home runs, obviously always memorable. I only hit 2 of them my whole career, so it's not it's not that many. I gotta go back and look through. But the first one, the month of August in 2022 was a good month for me, and I just remember, you know, working and faced some adversity that year and kind of dealt with some things, but continue to work, continue to persevere, and kind of, you know, saw the reward from that. I think that was the end of August when I did it, or maybe it might have been the middle of August, but that's the first home run was. It's probably going to be something super memorable.
Did you get your ball back?
No, so we were in Kannapolis, North Carolina, and there was a daggum construction site behind the behind the
No
stadium.
way.
And I hit it, and it bounced through the little fence and ended up in the construction site. And after the game, I think I hurried up, showered real quick, and ran off before the bus took off. And I'm sitting there looking through the fence like, do I see it? Do I see it? And there's like obviously no trespassing signs everywhere. And I actually contemplated hopping that fence and going back in there, but I didn't want to go to jail that night, so I refrained.
Yeah, plus be late for the bus on top of it, right?
I could have Ubered back. I wasn't worried about that. I just didn't want to go to jail. So yeah.
Go ahead, George.
If you had a message to give to a young person who was listening to our podcast tonight, what would it be?
2 things, I think. I think one, the same messages that my parents gave me. You know, whatever you want to do, if you set your mind to it, and if you put in the time and put in the work, then you can achieve essentially anything in this world. Don't let anybody put limitations on you, and don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Because at the end of the day, no one knows their potential, right? And so I think, you know, give it your all, and if you fall short, then you just fall short. But at the end of the day, I think you can hang your hat on knowing that you tried your best and you gave it your all. And the next thing I would say is be a good person, because like I said earlier, at the end of the day, no one remembers. I mean, obviously the Barry Bonds, the Griffeys, and the Alex Rodriguez, like people are going to talk about them all the time. But I think when it comes to people on a day-to-day basis and in your daily life, like they're going to remember the type of person you were. And so treat people with respect, whether it's the CEO or the janitor, it doesn't matter who they are. Treat everyone the same, treat people with respect and courtesy. And I think that'll take you a long way in life. And I think that's something everyone should just live by. I mean, we're all humans at the end of the day. No one's above anyone else. Some of us might have, or some people might have more high-profile jobs or more money in the bank account. But at the end of the day, we're all human, and treat each other as such. So those would be the two biggest things I think I would want a young person to take away from it.
Well said.
Anything else, George?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, Kier, what? You don't have to name everybody, but now some close relationships that you are glad that you made while playing baseball that you look forward to continuing outside of baseball.
I think there's a ton. Like I said earlier, just the whole organization was so tightly knit. And I think honestly, every guy that I play with, in some capacity, I'll keep a relationship with a few guys that stick out. Or Chris Troy, he mentioned him earlier. Just an all around wonderful guy, and I think y'all are gonna enjoy having him on next week. He's a pretty big personality. But Nick Decker, him and I got pretty close this year. Max Ferguson, Roman Anthony, I mean Marcelo, all those guys. Was fortunate enough. Blaze, Carson Seamus, we were roommates on the road forever. Maceo Campbell. I mean, I can continue to name a ton of guys, but I think it's pretty cool. I see this now with my college teammates. Like now that we're not playing together, we're actually pretty close. Like we're closer. And so hopefully the same thing can be said in a couple of years when I look back on my relationship with my professional teammates. We may not see each other every day, and we may live across the country from each other, or we may be doing different things, but hopefully we can say that our relationships are stronger and we're closer because of the time that we spent together in the clubhouse.
Okay, Kier, this is one of my favorite parts and favorite questions I get to ask. It's a hot tub time machine.
All right.
You can go back into time to face any pitcher you want. Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. You can face any pitcher. Who is it and why?
Oof. I think the only right answer, right, is you have to go Roger Clemens or two of the greats, or right, bottom of the ninth, big situation. I mean, if you hit a home run, a walk-off homer, like you're gonna be remembered forever. And so being a Red Sox, I mean, I'm gonna have to go with Clemens. Big moment, if you strike out, oh well, but if you hit a homer, that's something you're always gonna have.
Any final food for thought?
Can you repeat that? I think you kind of went out for a little bit.
Yeah. George, anything else that you'd like to say? Or ask?
No, just I'm always impressed when we talk to players about their commitment to their craft, but at the same time, as you said, remaining grounded, and that the importance of being a good person on top of it. And I think you're a great example of that. I think that if you do decide to work with young people, you're going to do an outstanding job, because you know what it takes to get things done, but you also know what it takes to be a good person. And sadly, I think a lot of the youth today needs that. So
I really appreciate that.
Kier, last thing I'm going to ask of you before you can give up your, where you can get found, how people can connect with you. I want you to give a final farewell moment of what the Boston Red Sox, your fellow Greenville teammates, and everybody that you've played with, what they've meant to you.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. I mean, the organization, like I mentioned earlier, was gracious enough to give a young kid a chance to go out and chase his dreams. So I think from that standpoint, I'm forever, indebted to the organization and extremely grateful for the opportunity that they gave me. From the first day into the last, they treated me they treated me well. I obviously wasn't a top prospect, and I wasn't one of the guys you're going to see on prospect rankings or prospect boards. But from the respect to the care to just everything, they treated me great. To all my teammates, it was a blast, and we made some special memories together. Obviously, things that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And so I'm just thankful for those memories. I'm thankful for the relationships that I made, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity. All in all, I'm obviously gonna miss being in the clubhouse and miss being in the locker room and miss competing every day. But it comes a point in everyone's life and career where they've got to hang the cleats up, and so that time has come for me. But I'm super appreciative and grateful just for the opportunity and the memories made with the Red Sox organization. So.
Kier, I couldn't sit there and said that any better. And please let all of our fans know where they can sit there and hit you up, where they can follow you at.
Yeah, so everything: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, LinkedIn. Everything is at Kier Meredith. I try to keep it super simple. Luckily, I've got a unique name, so there's not too many Kiers out there in the world. And so my usernames haven't been taken on any platforms yet, but at Kier Meredith on all those platforms, and you'll be able to find me. Shoot me a message. I love to hear from people and connect with people. So,
hey Kier, thank you for sitting there and giving us some of your time. Thank you for coming on. It's been a blast. We'd love to have you back on for a round 2 sometime in the future, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
So, guys. Check out all of our episodes, including this one, all major platforms, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Go over, head out and check out our merchandise, where you can get the newly released Kier. I see Kier looking at it already. The Roman Empire, established 2022. You can get that. You can get that shirt. Along with all of our other ones, our Pesky Podcast logo shirt. But hey, until next time, when we get to talk to Kier's good friend, Chris Troy. Thank you for checking out the Pesky Podcast.
Thank you guys for having me on.